Right about now, you are listening to the Legacy and Leadership Podcast, a show where we discuss living as a leader worth following, leading others to do the same, and in doing so, leaving a legacy for future generations. My name is Jimmie Gonzalez Jr., a learning and development professional and leadership coach, sitting down with my co-host Anthony Devon Watts Jr., an expert contact center leader that has effectively led and developed dynamic teams with high motivation. Together, we have over 30 years experience in the corporate game. Join us as we discuss our growth as leaders, share the lessons we've learned, and interview others to see how their leadership style was shaped as they were mentored by adversity.
Leadership is not for the faint of heart, right? You have to be wired a certain type of way to want to be able to take on that mantle of leadership. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it's always clear early on that that's our calling, right? And so I think when most leaders think back, there's probably a moment or instance where there's a glimmer of, hey, maybe I'm called to do something a little bit bigger. Maybe I'm called to do this, right? And so I'm just curious for you, like, what was that moment for you where you were like, hey, I think leadership is what I've been blessed with and what I've been called to do. And like, how did you know it was that moment? And then like, what was your first like real leadership experience?
No, that's a good question. I think, in a way, having somewhat of a lack of confidence. I don't know if there was ever a point where like, yes, I'm a leader. Even recently, as I left corporate America and came back and I started working with you again, I remember Richard, as he hired me, was like, I didn't hire you to be like this training person. Like, I hired you to be a leader. And man, it's been 4 years now, and I've still pondered. I feel like I have a much better understanding now, but I still pondered, kind of exactly what he saw, what he meant by that. But one of the first instances where somebody, I think saw something in me that I didn't necessarily see in myself. And I feel like maybe I've told you this story before. I don't know how long ago, if I did, but it's about football, and we talk about football a lot. So
all the time. Hey.
Not going to be necessarily a main topic of these podcasts, but man,
I can't promise that.
Well, we'll try to infuse some leadership conversations into football. We'll see what happens during the fall. So yeah, man, in the 8th grade, I was playing for what was then called the Pine Hills Chiefs, Pop Warner League, and I was on what we call the big boy team, kind of 140 pounds, I think, or so, like 130 above. Like I had just hit that mark.
Hold on. I got to call out that name would not fly in today's climate. The parents are not going to be down for, you ain't put my baby on no big boy team. He is regular size.
Yeah, he's regular, or he's he's a big bone. Nah,
he's a big bone.
He's a big bone. But yeah, I was on a big boy team, and again, Pine Hills Chiefs. And there was 3 teams. We won the championship that season. It was crazy, the journey that we went through. But there was unfortunately only 3 teams again at this weight class. So great season though. It was fantastic winning that championship. Hey, at least I was a champion.
Yeah, the ship is the only thing that matters.
Exactly. At some point in my football career. So I digress. At the beginning of the season, and this, Pop Warner High School, there's kind of that jamboree prior to the season starting. So we had this jamboree coming up, and the other 2 teams within, again, our weight class were playing a half against both of those teams. And I can't remember if it was the second half, but we're doing our thing, having a good game, and, kind of going back and forth. And now that I think about it, I guess we didn't really have like a backup quarterback. Our quarterback gets hurt, and we're like, okay, this was like the person that we were kind of putting all the eggs were in that one basket, right? Mm-hmm. So we're on the sideline, and coaches are kind of looking around, and they're looking to make a decision and had to do it pretty quickly so we can get back on the field. And coach looks over and he's like, Jimmie, you're going in and you're playing quarterback. And I'm like, all right, okay, coach. If you say so. So I played linebacker, and I also played Iron Man. I also played offensive line. I was a guard on the team at the time. I actually
Respect.
did pretty well blocking, for the quarterback who was now hurt. That wasn't my fault, I promise. But bro, if the people who are watching our video podcast, they may not necessarily be able to tell, but like I'm not very tall. If you don't know me, I'm like 5'5". I'm not a quarterback. Not in my wheelhouse. I can't really throw. I don't have a strong arm like that. So the fact that the coach asked me to go and play quarterback was just super surprising to me within that moment. And then he I would say he draws up the play. He's like, and we're gonna do a flea flicker. And it's like super complicated, but you got to like pass it to one person, they're passing it back, you do something else. Like it's not just handing the ball off. It's somewhat of there's timing involved, in this kind of play.
For sure.
My best friend at the time, he played wide receiver, and coach was like, yeah, you're going to do the flea flicker. And when you get the ball, I just want you to throw it up in the air to the goal post, and Ray Sean's going to catch it. And I'm like, okay, coach, if you say so. Like I'm looking at the position that we were at on the field and where the goal post was at. Again, not having a strong arm. So hike the ball, going through the flea flicker. I give it to the running back. He passes it back. I look up. I'm like, nah, this is not going to happen. I tuck the ball down. I start running. I got maybe 1 or 2 yards. I got tackled. So it was a very hindsight. It was fun, kind of nerve-wracking experience. But what that showed me, looking back over the years, is my coach saw something in myself that I didn't necessarily see at the time. And, he trusted me with the ball and trusted that I wasn't necessarily going to make a mistake or have a turnover. And that meant a lot to me in 8th grade. And it really helped to kind of propel, me from then on. Again, I didn't necessarily leave that moment, telling myself, oh, I'm a leader. And by no stretch of the imagination, there was still a lot of growth. But again, as over the last, 30 years or so, being able to look back on that, and other instances where, again, people are seeing things in you that you don't necessarily see in yourself, and they're able to pull that out and help you grow as a leader. I don't necessarily feel that leaders are born, that they're developed, and they're kind of taught, and they work to get to that, that type of role and that type of trust.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.
You have just listened to the Legacy and Leadership Podcast, hosted by Jimmie Gonzalez and Devon Watts. Thank you, and we hope that you live, lead, and leave a legacy worth remembering. Until next time.